Hello everyone, welcome to my new channel, Making Things with Strings. My name is Kate and I am a crafter. In particular, I am a fan of making things with string in various ways. And I've been watching content creators on YouTube whose channels are dedicated to similar endeavors, and I've been doing that for many years, and I thought that I wanted to try myself. So this is sort of a Flosstube channel, which has to do primarily with cross stitching, but I'm also quite an avid knitter and crocheter, so we're going to see a lot of knitting and crochet in my videos as well. Yeah, and so I don't know, you'll learn more about me as we go, I imagine, but like I said, my name is Kate. I'm Canadian, on the east coast of Canada, and I love all things crafty and all things nerdy, and I'm so glad that you're here. So thank you for spending some time with me. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some cross stitch stuff and some knitting stuff. I'm going to show you some recent cross stitch finishes of mine. I'm going to show you my whips, or my works in progress, and I'm going to do the same thing for knitting and crochet, and I hope you enjoy. So let's start with my cross stitch. So my first finish is a pattern called Marriage Endless Sleepover. This is something I found on Etsy. I'll give you a nice little close-up here. So it says, Marriage, an endless sleepover with your favorite weirdo. So recently some friends of mine, Julia and Courtney, got married, and I wanted to cross stitch this for them and frame it and give it to them as a wedding gift. And I did do that, but as you might see, I still have the cross stitch here, so what's up with that? I ended up having to stitch it twice because, as you might be able to see, this piece of fabric that I cut is bigger than what I needed for the pattern, but I started it down here in this corner, and I left myself like an inch or two of room here, which is usually enough. But then once I was finished stitching this, I realized that I couldn't find a frame at the store that would fit this properly centered without a custom mat or a custom shaped frame. Or without sewing some fabric around the edges. So I didn't have time to figure all of that out or to get some custom framing done. So I just re-stitched this pattern on a bigger piece of fabric and more centered, and I framed that and gave it to them. Maybe I'll insert a picture here of that framed version of this that I gave to my friends, but I still have this, and I'm sure I can do something with it, so I'm keeping it, and I'm going to make something out of it for Neil and I to keep, so that we'll have sort of a matching pattern. So this is stitched on just 18 count black Aida. I have a whole ton of black Aida. I've got a work in progress that I'll talk more to you about later. That project is why I bought all of this black Aida. I actually don't really enjoy stitching on the black Aida very much. It's difficult to see what's going on, but I find it looks nice. I like the black background, so yeah. So 18 count black Aida. I stitched this with just white DMC thread, 2 over 1, so 2 threads over one fabric thread. So yeah, this is Marriage, an endless sleepover with your favorite weirdo. So that was recently finished. So my next finish, cross stitch finish, is this piece here. It is called Happy Camper by Lori Holt. And here it is, and it is so very cute. I love the little trees and the flowers. I changed up the colors a little bit on this pattern, I think I just sort of rearranged some things. I believe that the camper is mostly pink with a yellow stripe in the pattern, but I made it yellow with a pink stripe. And I can't remember, there was a few other details. So there's, I think, something in the back of the truck, like a little doggy or something in the back of the truck, which I omitted from my piece. This is intended as a gift, and I won't reveal too much more about who the gift is for until after I give it to them. But I'm going to be framing this up very soon and giving it to them, so hopefully in a video soon I'll be able to show you that fully finished in a frame, and the person who's getting it will have it. So yes, like I said, this is a pattern by Lori Holt. I started this last summer and finished it around Christmas time, so it's not that recent of a finish, but I still haven't framed it up. And I'm not sure about this is Ada, maybe oatmeal Ada, and it's probably something like 18 count as well, although I don't know because I don't remember and I didn't write it down. But yeah, this is also 2 DMC threads over 1 fabric thread, 2 over 1. My last recent finish is the Woodland Sampler, which is by Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, and I am so pleased to have this done. This was, I think, a stitch along originally in 2013, and I bought it in 2013 and started it then, but I've only just finished it now. So here's what it looks like. I'll give you a nice view of the whole thing. We'll zoom in to see some details. This is just such a cute little monthly sampler. I love it so much, and I love Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. I have a few of their patterns. So yeah, and I started this just about 9 years ago. I'm finally done. The only real modifications that I've made is this banner at the bottom is supposed to have the year in it, but again, I stitched it over so many years, and I don't personally, I'm not a huge fan of putting the year on my works because since it's like a calendar, it's not always going to be 2022, so I like the idea of just having my initials there and not having a year on it at all. So yeah, that's my Woodland Sampler. It's lovely. So I'll be framing that up. I think I'm going to need a custom frame for that. All right, so now I'm moving on to current works in progress. So these are pieces that I'm working on and are not done yet. And I am starting with a piece called Needs No Paint. This is a Heaven and Earth Designs chart. The art of the piece is by Jill Clare, and I'm going to be posting a photo here of what the finished piece will look like, what the whole art piece looks like. Since starting to watch Flosstube, I learned about Heaven and Earth Designs and full coverage cross stitch. This isn't something that I had really known much before getting into Flosstube. So about a year ago, I decided that I wanted to try full coverage, and I wanted to try a Heaven and Earth Design specifically. So browsing through their website, Needs No Paint is what I landed on. Now, this is a bit of a different kind of HAID. It's not entirely full coverage in the way most of their designs are, and you'll see that here when I show you where I am currently. So this is what I have done so far on Needs No Paint. It's looking stunning. I love the look of the watercolor that's coming out here. I love the feathery mane. It's going to be such a stunning piece. But what I hope you can see is that this is all blank fabric, so it is not entirely full coverage. Now that I'm in here in the body, this is all full coverage, and the inside of the horse is all full coverage, and even the white parts of it are stitched, but outside here it's not stitched. So, you know, I've gotten quite a bit of this done. I'm about 9.5% through this piece at this point. But it did take me a while to get back going on it. Like I did this, I started up here in this corner, and this was just very tedious and sort of, you know, taking a long time to get things going. And what I really wanted was these beautiful vibrant colors that are in the body of the horse. You can also see some hanging threads down here. When I started this project, I was using the parking method, and you know, because I had never done a full coverage before, I didn't really know, let's focus, okay, I didn't really know what kind of method for stitching I was going to gravitate towards, so I tried parking. It seemed appealing, but it wasn't very fun for me, the parking method, even though I am using Pattern Keeper. You know, it wasn't driving me to pick it up and stitch it. Since starting this though, I've been watching Stitchman Darcy, and I notice when he shows us his beautiful works in progress, he's just doing everything one square at a time, one 10 by 10 square at a time, and there's never any hanging threads, and it always looks so perfect and so crisp. And I really liked the idea of just completing one 10 by 10 square at a time and like seeing that progress. And so you can see now that I've shifted to that sort of method. So I went all the way up to the edge of this page here, and sometimes I dip over if it makes sense, and you can see down here, maybe, you know, I'll dip into the next square a little bit if it makes sense every now and then, but by and large, I'm mostly just doing it one square at a time. It's a little bit more wasteful thread-wise, because I end up cutting my thread and just throwing away the end that I might otherwise have been able to stitch with. But that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make, given that I actually want to stitch on it this way, and I'm enjoying it a lot more. So currently how I'm doing it. So I'm doing this next page here, which I've just started. This is the very start of a page. And then I'm going to move forward over this way, which is going to be the horse's head. So I'm excited for that. Yes, is there anything else I wanted to say about this? Oh, I'm not sure what this fabric is. I think I just got it from Michael's. It's just a pretty white, I think close to the 25 count, which they recommended on the pattern. And I am stitching this 2/1 on this fabric, but I'm doing 10th stitch instead of full cross. So that's my first time ever doing 10th stitch. I'm really loving it, and that's part of the reason why it's going so fast too. So that's my first Heaven and Earth design, and I'm loving this. I'm so excited to see it come together. So the next thing that I'm working on, I recently got a couple cross-stitch magazines from Michael's, picked them up while I was there. And in the World of Cross-Stitching magazine, there was this little summer beach collection of a whole bunch of very cute little summer beachy water-themed patterns. There's no image of this particular pattern without showing the chart. What I think I'm going to do is just show it to you back here a little bit. So this one is a lighthouse. I want to do 3 of these patterns. I want to do this lighthouse. I want to do this text one that says, "I lost my heart to the sea." And then finally, I'm going to do this little fishing village. It'll be like a little triptych. And so I have started on the lighthouse, and here it is. So this is my little lighthouse start. This is a lot of fun to stitch on. Again, this is this is all DMC, all of my threads so far are DMC. I've never stitched with anything else. And this is Aida as well. Again, not sure about what kind of Aida or what count it is. This looks like it might be a little bit bigger than 18, so it might be like 14 or 16 count Aida. But here's my cute little lighthouse, and I am enjoying this a lot. It's just nice and simple, and I can do it while we're watching TV or something. So my last cross stitch work in progress is what I call Twilight Imperium Nebula. So Twilight Imperium is a board game, and I'm very into board games and into this particular board game quite a lot. Love, love, love this board game. And in the board game, Twilight Imperium, there are a whole bunch of different kinds of anomaly tiles. So there's like a gravity rift, and there's an asteroid field, and I am stitching the nebula. So what I did was I went to pixelstitch.net, and I used that website to create a cross-stitch chart based on a photo of the board game tile for the nebula. And I'm going to put a picture here of what that mock-up looks like that pixelstitch.net gave me. And I will show you here how far I've gotten on this so far. Let me just fold this all back so you can have just a good look at my start on the nebula. So here it is. And I am doing that same 10 by 10 block at a time method, which I find really motivating to keep going. And yeah, this is what it's looking like. So I'm interested to see how it turns out. When it's back far like this, I feel like it looks really great. When I'm up close and when I'm stitching, I see a lot of like columns running through this cross stitch. So yeah, not entirely sure how I feel about that. Again, this is like just an automated pixelstitch.net. I didn't do a whole lot to customize this pattern. But yeah, this is my little nebula start. And so the goal here is to create one of these for each of the different anomaly tiles that exist in the Twilight Imperium board game, and then I'll have sort of a series of these images. So yeah, it's been a little while since I've worked on this. I've been focusing on other things, but it's still there, it's still in my mind, and I still love it. The colors are beautiful in here. Alright, so I'm going to move on to some knitting now. Knitting, I've been knitting for a little bit longer than I have been cross-stitching, especially avidly cross-stitching. I learned to cross-stitch when I was young, just the same way that I learned to knit when I was really young. But in university, I picked up knitting again, and I've really, really stuck with that. And it's only been a few years since I picked up cross-stitch a lot. I guess the last 10 or so years, like when I first started that woodland sampler, that's kind of when I was getting back into it. Anyway, so I thought I'd show you some of my recent knitting finishes and show you what I'm currently working on. I'm a huge sock knitter, so I'm going to show you 3 pairs of finished socks that I have. So first I'll show you this pair because this is very indicative of the type of sock that I typically knit. I haven't tied in my ends yet, but here's my standard sock. Here's what it looks like. This pattern is essentially Hermione's Everyday Sock. This is a free sock pattern that you can get on Ravelry. And it's sort of this pattern on the body of the sock is that repeat. I do kind of my own thing for my heels, and I do 2x2 ribbing for the cuff. But yeah, it's essentially a modified Hermione's Everyday Sock, and it's just the sock pattern that I have memorized. So when I'm just go-to knitting a sock, this is what it will look like. I also can't remember, this is like a Halifax yarn dyer who dyed the yarn I'm holding here. I will put their information up on the screen if I can find it. But I got this yarn at Halcon a couple of years ago and knit these beautiful sockies out of that. But I also have a couple other slightly different pairs of socks here. So I have, again, none of the ends are woven in because I just hate weaving in ends. But here's a really cool pair of socks that I knit using sort of helical knitting. So this is sort of two different kinds of yarn, this light pinky yarn and the deeper burgundy yarn. And I used helical knitting to do this sock. So it looks like that. It's got a lovely mate over here. Haven't worn these yet because I can't bring myself to tie in the ends. I should do that really soon. And then finally, here's another little pair of socks. I don't have the pattern off the top of my head for this. I will put it on the screen somewhere or down in the description below if I find it. But this yarn was a Halloween skein from Hue Loco from 2021, and it came with this cute little super vibrant purple. It's not showing up accurate. It looks sort of blue on the screen, but the toe and the heel here are just like a super bright purple. And you can see this pattern has like a little cable-like detail here running down the outside top of the foot. And I also have two of these little boys. So that's 3 completed pairs of socks. I also have these absolutely adorable little baby socks. I love knitting this little baby sock pattern. I have information about it. So on Ravelry, this sock pattern is called Simple Baby Socks by Penny Pebberty, and it is also free. It's got this cute little seed stitch heel on it, and they are adorable. This skein of yarn I got as the Christmas Day skein on an advent calendar that I got this past year in 2021. I'll put a link to the dyer that I got an advent calendar from last year. I've been doing advent calendars. That last year was the second year that I've done that, and I'm going to be doing one again this year. I got Hue Loco's advent calendar for this coming year, so I'm really looking forward to that because I love their yarn. All right, so that's my pile of socks. And I have another final pair of socks to show you that is a work in progress. I've not done these socks yet, but I'm excited about them, so I want to show them to you. I'm also excited because these socks are living in my very first actual project bag. So this is a cute little project bag by Sugar and Candy, which I got on my recent trip to Victoria, British Columbia. Here is their info. So Sugar and Candy. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this little bag. It's just a nice little small bag, mostly pretty much just for a pair of socks. Maybe you could do a hat project or something in here, but this is perfect for me because I mostly knit socks. So I have one sock done, and I am partway through the second sock. So here is the completed sock. So this is my Hermione's Everyday Sock standard. That's what it looks like. So the yarn that I'm using here was also purchased at that same knitting shop in Victoria. This was the Beehive Wool Shop. The yarn is Ancient Arts yarn. And this is their Superwash Fine Merino and Nylon blend, and the color Socknado. It's a fingering sock weight yarn. So yeah, nice like Canadian hand dyer. And the heel and toe are by Leo and Roxy. Basics. It's a Basics Sock Mini by Leo and Roxy, and the color is Queen's Navy. Love it. I also so this skein and this pair of socks is for my friend Carolyn, who is one of the friends I was visiting while I was at West. She came with me to the yarn store, and so she picked out a skein of yarn and a contrasting toe and heel, and I said that I would knit them for her. So I'm doing that, and here is where I am on the second sock. So just have done the cuff and working a little bit on the leg of the sock. Yeah, and so I'm using these little ChowGoo 9-inch circular needles. The gauge that I use is a US 0 or 2 millimeter for knitting socks, and I use 64 stitches. So like I said, my friend Carolyn picked out this yarn. I'm knitting these socks for her. I did actually pick out a skein of yarn for myself. I love to do that when I'm traveling somewhere, find some yarn at a yarn shop there, and it's sort of like my souvenir. So I also got some Ancient Arts yarns with the same base, so that 80/20 merino nylon. Oh wait, Socknado is not the name of the colorway. Socknado must be the name for the base. So the colorway for Carolyn's sock is Weimaraner. Apologies. And the colorway that I got is called Pop Rocks, and it is so beautiful. I love that it's like mostly a nice neutral gray, but it's got these awesome, varied, colorful speckles, and I love it. And I also got a contrast for my heels and toes from Leo and Roxy. And this colorway is Pacific Point. So also blue, but a little bit brighter than the deep, deep navy that I got for Carolyn's sock, or that Carolyn chose for her sock. So here's the two of them together, and I'm gonna whip these up next, I think, probably. Another awesome thing that I got from the Beehive Wool Shop is a copy of Lane magazine. I've always wanted to have one of these, and now I do, and it's lovely. I'm not sure what I will be knitting from this, but maybe that's something to look forward to. You can see there's a beautiful shawl in here. There's a couple sweater patterns. There's a sock pattern. So lots of stuff to choose from, and I really haven't dug much into this, but there's some great articles in here too. Really, really nice, like beautiful knitting magazine. So I want to talk about a couple other projects. One knitting project and one crochet project. I'll save that crochet one for the end. I want to show you this pattern, or sorry, this little crop top sweater that I have knit. This is the Soldotna crop by Erica Luder, and I've knit this using some yarn from Volenvine, who is a beautiful American hand dyer, and these 4 different colors of yarn, she kind of bundled them together, and she knit this Soldotna crop for herself with these colors, and I just thought it was stunning, a beautiful little color work crop. So this is it finished and blocked, and I don't love it. I don't love the crop. I'm wanting to make it not a crop, make it longer, and I have tons of yarn to do this with. And then I'm also contemplating the sleeves and whether I want to make them longer or not. So this is something that was sort of finished. I even blocked it. But I put so much work into it that I really want to make sure that I love it. So I am considering sort of ripping out this little ribbing edge and continuing to make this a little bit longer and potentially making the sleeves longer too. Although I'm not as sold on that. I'm definitely going to do making the body longer. But this is a lovely, lovely sweater pattern that I love, and I want to wear it. So that's something that I wanted to kind of put out there into the world to say that I'm going to do it, because it's just been sitting there. I finished knitting it last year. It's just been sitting there for months with nothing happened to it. I haven't tied in the ends. I haven't worn it. All I did was finish knitting it and block it, and so that's sort of a shame. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is an amazing crochet project that I've been working on for a long time, and it is a granny stripe blanket. So I've just used the Granny Stripes blanket pattern from Ravelry by Lucy of Attic 24. This is a free pattern, and I'm going to show you what I have so far on this granny stripe blanket and talk about it a little bit. So this is something that I've seen a lot of knitters on YouTube doing, and it's basically intended to use up all those little ends and scraps of yarn that you end up with. And like I said, I knit a lot of socks, so I do have a lot of you know, leftovers in skeins. Okay, so I'm going to keep it folded in half just to make this a little bit easier. But by the time this is done, it will essentially be big enough to fit on my bed as like a bedspread. So let me show you where I am. This is the top. This is where I've most recently crocheted. We'll keep going and going. Here we go. Going, going, and going. Ooh, let's go. There, that's the tippy tip. Okay, so this is a gigantic beast of a project, and I think I'm almost done. So I've got these little ends skeined up. It's a little bit messy, but I think when I'm done with this little cake of yarn, the blanket will be big enough. So I'm almost done my little scrappy blanket, and I don't know what I'm going to do next for a little scrappy project, but I will need something to do with my sock scraps, and I do have an idea. I was thinking maybe I could do a shawl or something like that, but I also recently saw this amazing like sweater or cardigan pattern that is also crocheted using this sort of granny stripe method that I could do this with. So I'll show a picture of that if I can find it here. Yeah, so those are all the things I'm currently working on. Those are the things that I've recently finished. If you have made it through this far, thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to me chatter and prattle on about my crafts. I'm really excited to start this channel and have a place, even if it's just for me to look back on and remember and see the things that I worked on. But yeah, I'm just really grateful for the Flosstube community on YouTube and the knitting community on YouTube. I spend a lot of my time stitching and knitting, watching you all, and yeah, I'm excited to be getting going and trying this for myself. So thanks again for hanging out with me. I'm not sure how often I'll be posting videos, but I'll see you in the next one. I'm friggin' sweating.